On the other side, I think Minnesota is really fascinating. I think they caught the league by storm last year. Sam Darnold resurrected his career. They let him walk in free agency, obviously now out in Seattle. Now they turn it over to the first round pick. J.J. McCarthy got injured early on last year, which really opened the door for Sam to take that job. And obviously he ran with it. If I'm taking from a small pool of coaches, Rich, in the league, that I say, okay, I get a coach's draft. And by the way, you got to get your horse to run a little faster.
Tell me about it, man. It's so friggin', it's too on the nose brand, man. But I understand. Thank you.
Let's just say if there was a coaching draft picking 18th, you're not going to get Kevin O'Connell. I think it's safe to say he would be gone. Nice. So I think he's one of the handful of guys in the league that understands how to scheme schematic advantages for an offense through play calling, how to develop and get the best out of his quarterbacks. He did it with Kirk Cousins, obviously did it with Sam. Can he do it again with J.J. McCarthy? And then obviously just his charisma, his ability to coach the entire roster. So I put him in that very small group like a guy like Tomlin. So it has every storyline, every matchup. Both these teams to me are fascinating for the whole season, but of course, the game in Dublin.
Yeah, I'll be on the set on NFL Network doing the studio show, throwing to you guys, and it's just I cannot wait to see that scene. And then the Vikings.
I had heard.
Sorry, go ahead.
You might know more than me. I had heard, Rich, that the day the tickets went for sale, I don't know exactly the mechanism of how all of that works, but the day they went for sale to the general public, I had heard through someone at the NFL that the queue of like people waiting in there to get access to tickets was like 600,000 people, or like something outrageous. So I think the demand in the city and just the country as a whole is
back. Adam Thielen in trade with the Panthers. His return is expected to alleviate a lack of receiver depth in Minnesota because of Jordan Addison's 3-game suspension and a series of injuries to other receivers in camp. Thielen will have a chance to finish his career in the state where he was born, raised, and played 10 of his 12 NFL seasons. And check this out. No one may be happier than Adam's family and wife, Caitlin, who was also born and raised in Minnesota. The caption reading, "Real-time excitement. Wow, we can't believe it." Booger, how do you think that J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings offense will benefit from a vet like Thielen being on that team?
Well, I think it's no doubt. To me, this is a win-win on both sides. He gets out of Carolina. He gets to go back to Minnesota, and we know the familiarity that he had there. And Jordan Addison is not going to be there. So you got Justin Jefferson, who's going to take all the coverage, and now you just need a savvy veteran like Adam Thielen who can win one-on-one coverage underneath. You got Hawkinson at tight end. And so for J.J. McCarthy, who's making his swan song as far as being a first-year starter, he's got two guys that can kind of work the underneath in Hawkinson and Adam Thielen. To me, this is the best of both worlds. You get a guy that wants to come back home who can also help a young team and a young quarterback. They have to be tickle pink in Minnesota right now.
I do want to also mention that Thielen spent time with McCarthy the last 2 summers as a part of a group of players working out together before training camp, so they are familiar with one another. Jeff, let's talk about his former quarterback, Bryce Young. It seemed like they had a solid connection towards the end of last season. Why did Carolina decide to send their most productive receiving target to Minnesota?
It's a great question. It's the question of this trade because Adam Thielen also played really well with Bryce Young 2 years ago. It was one of the bright spots of that season. Now they've shipped him off because ultimately they believe in their young receiving core. They have invested first-round picks each of the last 2 drafts in wide receivers. They ultimately think that this is the group that's going to push them forward with Young. But I will say they also waived Hunter Renfrow, so they really don't have the type of veteran presence in that core for Bryce Young to perhaps rely on. There was a while here where we thought that the Vikings, we knew they wanted Thielen. We didn't think that the Panthers would trade him because of this very situation. Now, though, Bryce Young will have to be the big man in that locker room and really find a way to connect with some of these younger wide receivers.
Yeah, you saw the ages on the screen there. The Panthers didn't have a single player with more than 84 targets last season. Jeff, Booger, thank you.
We're back here on HQ Spotlight here on CBS Sports Network, where we dial in and keep our eye on the NFL. A lot of moves happened just yesterday. Commanders fans can breathe a little easier today now that the heartbeat of that team, Terry McLaurin, is staying in D.C. And elsewhere, Cincinnati fans also got some good news as the stalemate between the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson is over. Well, for now. The star pass rusher reached an agreement to raise his salary this season to $30 million, which is a $14 million raise. For much more on that and all things going on around the league, let's go ahead and say hello to our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. JJ, it is so great to see you. Let's go ahead and start with the reaction around the league after the news came down. You're asking all the right questions there, JJ. Let's go ahead and get to the Vikings here. This is a team where they have a front office staff that's just been wheeling and dealing in terms of trades as of lately. So what's next, JJ? And tell me why it has to be a receiver.
Well, they're looking for a new man on the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know. Do people still use that Lizzo lyric?
We do. We do. JJ does.
Look, the new man on the Minnesota Vikings may actually be the old man on the Minnesota Vikings, someone who was actually on the team when that lyric was actually popular. Adam Thielen, currently with the Carolina Panthers, at least for the next little bit. Thielen, of course, made his name in Minnesota the last 2 years. He's been on bad Carolina Panthers teams. He's been the veteran receiver over there. Look, yes, the Vikings want him, but is the price going to be right? Is the draft pick compensation going to be right for a player of his age when you consider the salary, compensation? All those things have to work out. And the Vikings and Panthers, the two GMs there, have been in fairly regular communication. Deadline spur action. Maybe something will happen by 4 p.m. Eastern once the rosters are more or less set. But also, just because it's a deadline today doesn't mean it won't still be a deadline tomorrow. Like, if they don't get the deal done for Adam Thielen today, it doesn't mean that they can't do it tomorrow. But even if they don't get it done, maybe they look elsewhere for a different wide receiver that they would ultimately trade for, or, depending on how these waiver cuts go, perhaps claim one off of the waiver wire later on over the next 26 or so hours. So that's who the Minnesota Vikings have their eye on. If they can actually get him or not, we'll see.
Okay, so from Lizzo to T-Swift, you knew.
We have a little bit of news. Welcome back, Adam Thielen, to where it all began with the Vikings. That's right. Yeah, I feel like when you go from the Panthers to the Vikings, it's a nice little applause.
For sure.
And,
friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Adam Thielen.
Yes, sir.
For a lot of draft capital associated with day 3 over the next 2 years. So the Vikings, Matthew, while Jordan Addison is suspended, get some wide receiver help in the veteran who was pretty good when he was healthy last year.
Yeah, he certainly was. And the other thing about Thielen is that, so he got a massive target share early on when he was sort of the only game in town, but like still clearly has something. And then you think about this offense, right? And so, you know, he obviously is very familiar with the Vikings and that offense there. And so I think he'll fit right in, especially as you mentioned, Jordan Addison out for the first 3 games. Jalen Naylor banged up. We don't know his availability for week 1. So they're suddenly pretty thin. And so for them to get, using one of those magical 5th-round picks, by the way, they swap 5s with the Panthers. They also give up a 4. Panthers send back a conditional 7th. I think Thielen's actually going to have some cheap fantasy value the first 3 weeks this season. I think once Addison comes back, it's hard to see him having consistent fantasy value in a normal size league and a non-deep league, because you're going to have Addison. Obviously, you have Jefferson there. We know they want to use the running backs, and of course, TJ Hawkinson's there as well. Rare Writer says, or Rare Revitter?
Sure.
I don't know.
Jet us to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Jet us to the moon, no question. Yeah, I mean.
The story here, though, Matthew, it's an amazing day for cokeheads across America.
Cokeheads unite. Jalen Coker.
Alive and well.
Clearly, this was a move to, as the Carolina Panthers turn to a youth movement. You know, they have T-Mac on one side, Xavier Legette on the other, but Jalen Coker now becomes the big slot for Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think it signals their belief in the step that Coker is made this summer, and he had some flashes last year, but now you look at it, he's starting in 11 personnel for them. And honestly, is there a world where Xavier Legette gets banged up again or things don't click for him, that Coker is the number 2 option in this offense? I don't think that's out of the range of outcomes. So
not at all. I mean, I think questions are still open. You know, it's still to be determined on Xavier Legette.
They don't just trade Thielen thinking like, oh, they got to win some games this year, the Panthers, right? Sure. There's only so many years over and over again that you can lose. So they obviously weren't just going to give Thielen away unless they actually had some belief in the young players on this roster. I am a believer in Coker in this offense.
It's just a great signal. It's the same thing with Devon Vele getting traded and what that signals for Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin. Like, this means that there is a level of confidence in guys like Jalen Coker that perhaps there wasn't 3-4 months ago, but now they've seen enough.
Cokeheads unite. We're back, baby.